Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Farah Karima as your MC, and welcome back to Infrastructure Connect Digital Series, a series of activities from Indonesia Infrastructure Week, Konstruksi Indonesia, and Beton Indonesia 2020. And this event is accessible through the Digital Infrastructure Connect platform. Register yourself on infrastructureconnect.id to get an access. Please allow me to inform you that during the webinar event, participants can ask questions through the Q&A feature, which is located at the bottom of your screen. Please mention your name, your company or institution, also the question addressed to which speaker through the Q&A feature. You can ask the question in Bahasa and we will translate and answer in English. And the moderator later will select some of the questions that will be delivered to the panelists. And there will be 3 souvenirs from the Embassy of Canada for 3 best questions. And the winners will be announced in Indonesia Infrastructure Week Instagram at Indonesia Infrastructure Week and contacted by the Embassy of Canada. And last but not least, the rules for obtaining e-certificate and presentation material will be delivered at the end of the event. We would like also to invite participants to sign up for one-on-one meetings with the panelists. Interested participants can sign up for B2B meeting at the bit.ly link shown in the slide. Thank you. And now, before we start the webinar, please join me to welcome Mr. Teshome Nkrumah. He's a Canadian Trade Commissioner and the Deputy Trade Program Manager at the Embassy of Canada to Indonesia and East Timor. where he leads a team of trade professionals supporting Canadian businesses in the infrastructure, clean technology, financial services, aerospace, and defense sectors. Mr. Teshome, the screen is yours.
Terima kasih, Bu Farah. Bapak-bapak dan ibu-ibu, good morning. Selamat pagi dan selamat datang di acara webinar kami. On behalf of the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service and the Embassy of Canada to Indonesia, I am delighted to welcome you to this webinar. We're pleased to welcome representatives from the Canadian companies Energia, Plastic Bank, and Quadrigen Power Systems. But first, allow me to express my deepest gratitude to Bapak Bernardus Junoputro, Senior Advisor and Executive Director, Strategy and Transactions at Ernst & Young, for agreeing to be our moderator here today. This morning's webinar promises an insightful discussion on world-class Canadian waste management technologies, but we hope it will also stimulate a broader reflection on our collective responsibility to care for our environment and our planet. You know, August 22nd this year was Earth Overshoot Day 2020. This day marks the date when humanity's demand for ecological resources and services in a given year exceeds the capacity of the Earth to regenerate. Interestingly, while Earth Overshoot Day has been moving up earlier on the calendar in past years, reduced resource consumption due to COVID-19 has delayed it a full 3 weeks this year compared to last year. Nonetheless, it is a harrowing reminder that our massive consumption of ecological resources and accumulation of waste far exceeds what our planet can sustain. It seems inconceivable, yet more than 2 billion tons of waste is generated around the world every year, and disposing of it is an increasingly and growing challenge, especially in our cities. Indonesia, with one of the fastest urbanization growth rates in Asia, generating 105,000 tons of solid waste a day in 2019. This number is expected to increase to 150,000 tons per day by 2025. At the same time, most waste facilities in major cities in Indonesia are expected to be at full capacity in 2 years, while 40% of the country's 142 million urban residents remain without access to basic waste collection services. As we all know, waste that is poorly managed blights our land, contaminates water resources, pollutes the oceans, and warms our planet. That's why it's such a pleasure that with us today are a few of the Canadian companies that are global pioneers in waste processing and other game-changing clean technologies, helping to transform our waste into resources. Energia has delivered over 1,600 resource recovery plants in over 4 continents in the last 25 years alone. Plastic Bank is a recipient of the United Nations SDG Action Awards in 2019 and was awarded the 2019 Game Changer of the Year at the Green Tech Festival in Germany for its innovative projects in addressing the global plastic waste problem. While Quadrigen Power Systems has developed a unique C3P process that cleans biogas and other gases for uses such as in electricity, biomethane, CO2 for hydroponics, and hydrogen. These companies and their technologies are leading the transition from an economic model based on take, make, and dispose to a circular model where goods are produced, distributed, and consumed in a way that retains the value of the products and resources for as long as possible. This shift also holds the promise of increased resource productivity, creation of new jobs, and reduced negative environmental impacts. I assure you, like Indonesia, Canada continues to face the challenge of managing the household and industrial waste it produces. This webinar is an important opportunity to share Canadian best practices and lessons learned, specifically in developing urban solid waste management infrastructure. But more importantly, it is an opportunity to continue to dialogue about how we protect and preserve a strong ecological inheritance for future generations. Thank you all for participating, and I do wish you a fruitful discussion. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Mr. Teshome, for the opening remarks. And now today we will be discussing about waste management technologies, an integral part of urban infrastructure development. And today's webinar will present speakers from Energia, Breaking Barriers to Sustainability, Plastic Bank, Empowering the World to Stop Ocean Plastic, and Quadrogen, A Greener Earth Through Sustainable Energy. And present with me today as moderator, Mr. Bernardus Jonoputro. He's a senior advisor and executive director, strategy and transaction, Ernst & Young. In his business and professional work, Bernardus is active as advisor to investors, corporations, bilateral agencies, as well as central and local governments in Indonesia and Southeast Asia region on financing, infrastructure, PPP, and urban projects. His 30 years of professional experience include senior management position with leading global companies, including American Express Bank, Ernst & Young, PwC, and prior to the current position, he was Deloitte Country Head of Infrastructure and Capital Project. He had sat as board member for leading Indonesian listed companies, Jababeka Infrastructure Tbk, Nusantara Infrastructure Tbk, Hawkins Infrastructure International New Zealand, among others. And he is currently the trade advisor to New Zealand Government Trade and Enterprise for East Asia. And now without further ado, I will turn the time over to Mr. Bernardus Jonoputro to lead this discussion. Pak Bernie, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Farah, for the very kind introductions, and a very good morning to all of us. First of all, thank you very much, Teshome, for the very informative opening, and I suppose thank you for inviting me and all of us here to be part of the conversation that is going to be very important. We will have a very exciting, I hope, productive session this morning. I see from the participants there are many of us from Indonesia, so if you have any questions at all to me or to any of the presenter later, please do, and if you find it difficult to send your questions in English, please do in Bahasa, and I will try to convey that to the speakers. So let's start our discussion. A very important topic, as Teshome have mentioned earlier. Talking about waste management, we will be talking about humanity. We will be talking about how we work together to protect our environment. And today we will have distinguished speakers from leading, reputable, and pioneering Canadian companies to learn and to exchange experience, as well as perhaps later on in the session to discuss about key issues of waste management. As we all know, the solid waste management is becoming a critical urban infrastructure issues and challenges. It is increasingly gets higher priority in the national agenda. In 2017, the government issues policy and national strategy on municipal solid waste management. And furthermore, a few other regulatory reforms follow that. And yet, at the moment, we still see that the challenges is still ahead of us, and we would like to discuss this morning. And with us today, we have three very reputable Canadian companies. We have three speakers representing the organization. First speakers will be Mr. Kunal Shah, that represent Indonesia, Klaus Skejer, the president of Asia for Plastic Bank, and we also have with us joining from Vancouver, Carolyn Bailey, who's the manager in business development for Quadrogen Power Systems. To jumpstart our discussion today, I would like to introduce our first speaker. The first speaker is Kunal Shah. He is the Managing Director and Regional Business Development Head for Asia Pacific for Indonesia. Kunal is a chemical engineer by background with over 20 years of global experience in the space of water, wastewater, municipal solid waste, and bioenergy. He is currently a Managing Director and Regional Business Development Head for Asia in Indonesia. Indonesia is a global leader in organics waste management and in maximizing resource recovery from wastewater, solid waste, and agricultural waste. Prior to joining Indonesia, Kunal was Regional Marketing Lead for South Asia at VA Tech Wabag. Also a global water process EPC contractor. Kunal, as we know him well, has a hands-on experience in developing and building several water and waste projects in three of the world's largest and fastest growing economies, India, China, and ASEAN countries. He is a mentor in several global water and water startups, and is an active speaker in various global forums on water. And a very well accomplished professional, which he will definitely share some of his views today. So without further ado, I would like to hand the screen to Pak Kunal to share with us his views on today's topic. Kunal, how we call it now, the screen is yours, please.
Thank you, Pak Bani. Salamat. Thanks. Selamat pagi, all Bapak and Ibu there back in Indonesia. I will be representing Energia and talking about an interesting topic. Let me share my screen. Is my screen up, Pak Bani?
Yes, all good. All good. Thank you.
Okay, so I've taken a topic that waste management has been talked about in Indonesia for a few years. So I was thinking that is an integrated and cost-effective underlying solution for Indonesian waste possible? So I said, yeah, boleh, and that's how I'm going to present about that. First thing first is Energia. We are a Canadian headquartered company out of Ontario, Toronto. Our vision is not a zero waste world, but a zero organic waste world. We believe that the organic waste is the one which causes a lot of methane, a lot of smell, a lot of leachate. So as a company, we focus on handling wastewater sludge, septic sludge, food waste, solid waste, focusing a lot on the organic fraction of solid waste, food processing waste, and agriculture waste. Through a proprietary and integrated solution portfolio, we convert that into either renewable power, renewable gas, recyclables, fertilizer, and clean water. Again, we are not a product supplier. We are an end-to-end solutions provider, right from the waste reception until either the electricity or the gas as an output. We also invest into projects. We do EPC time to time, but in Indonesia, we would partner with an EPC contractor to do that. This is our footprint. We are headquartered in Toronto. Our biggest operations are coming out of California and Europe. I'm based in Singapore. We've finished over 1,600 anaerobic digestion facilities across the world in the last 30 plus years, and in about 4 continents. Everybody talks about, yes, being in Canada is good, but I think we also take a pride of being in Asia and being Asian. I think we have Our regional headquarters is in Singapore, where we are running 2 anaerobic digestion facility, including one is food waste. We built India's first MBT-based waste management facility. We've just commissioned Japan's largest biogas plant, starting foot on Korea with a biogas plant. And if you see the orange dots, Indonesia is a target market where we are trying to develop projects, and we are looking at doing more activities, and so is Philippines, Australia, and Vietnam. I would not go into detail about this, but feel free to reach out. But yeah, as a company, we do BOOs, we do EPC, we operate and maintain facilities. We build plants roughly around 400 megawatt hour of electricity. And we are a very hardcore technology company with 57 patents. These are some of the references in various parts of the world. These are anaerobic digestion facilities. These are some of the waste management facilities. So you can imagine here is South Africa's, or even Sub-Saharan Africa's, first non-incineration based waste processing facility in the city of Cape Town. We built a massive plant in Cyprus, UK, India, USA, and a few more. Okay, so let's talk about Indonesia, sir. So we've talked about a lot of waste management companies coming from North America, Japan, Europe, talking about the waste should be handled this way, the waste should be handled that way. But I think I myself have been to a lot of landfills, including Suntar, Bantar Gebang, Bali, and I've seen that most of the waste in Indonesia is organic waste. A lot of waste is organic in content. So if you take 1,000 ton a day, almost 60%. In cases in Jakarta, it can go even as high as 70% organic. And there is a very less plastics available in that mixed waste because it is already scavenged by a lot of people. And the calorific value of the waste on an average is very less. This is a general norm which we have seen across in our experience in the last 3 to 5 years in Indonesia. Now, organics is a major problem various places in the world, and I would say that even in Europe, organics remains a major problem because it is something which creates greenhouse gases. It leads to leachate problem, which goes into the soil. So people talk and tell us that, Pak, what solution do you want to provide for Indonesia? And for us, the answer is that as my suit, it is a tailor-made solution. The solution for waste management, even in Indonesia, from cities to city will vary. It depends on the quality of waste, the quantity of waste. For example, you cannot put up an incinerator for 200 tons a day plant. What are the market drivers? Is the market driver good tipping fee like Australia, or good feed-in tariff like Europe? Is there a market for bio-CNG? Is there an off-taker for bio-CNG? What are the regulations for flue gas treatment, wastewater quality, hazardous fly ash disposal? What are the local lay of the land? What does the mayor want? What does the governor want in a particular province? What is the comfort of the investors? Because most of the waste projects in Indonesia will be PPP projects. So the investors are going to be local investors and overseas investors, and we need to see what gives them comfort. And then last but not the least is preference of local government. So there is no one technology or solution which fits. So I think it depends on a series of factors, and that's what we will tell. Everybody also asks that, do you do waste to energy? Sometimes I ask this question, it's $1 million question. Is it waste to energy or waste of energy? Waste to energy is a very common word when we talk about waste management, because people generally believe put the waste, burn it, make electricity. But the waste should also be of the quality to be burned. I don't say all waste is not possible to be burned. And in fact, we work with incineration companies, and you will see in the later slides, but I think it needs a tailor-made solution. So our solution can be defined in a way that we focus on organic extraction, making electricity or CNG out of it, then recovering recyclables. It gives a lot of employment. And last but not the least is the remaining material. Either we convert into RDF for a cement kiln, or it can be burned in an incinerator to make electricity. So without further detail, I will just quickly tell you about a video which will explain you about the facility and what we have done.
Almost everything we buy winds up in a landfill and is lost to society forever.
Imagine a world where garbage is a resource. Imagine a world where we can save our oceans while solving the global waste crisis. Imagine a world where we can give back to our planet its resources. You don't have to imagine it anymore. It is here, and we're doing it now. The Energia team has acquired, developed, and integrated technologies that allow to maximize revalorization of solid waste.
I'm Rob Murray. I'm the Vice President of Project Execution for Energia. I'm building projects around the world. The plant's fascinating to us from an engineering perspective because it uses state-of-the-art technologies to receive the trash and break it down into its fundamental components. The economics are helpful because the recycled materials can be sold, which helps offset the cost of operating the plant. Biogas generated from the organic portion of the trash being converted into electricity. Ultimately, the biological component becomes a fertilizer, which is reused in land application, and all the wastewater from the different areas.
Sorry, Bernie, I just want to ensure that people can see the screen or not at all.
Yeah, it's all good. We can see the screen.
And the video is okay?
We can. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please continue.
So the plant is collected and treated and put through reverse osmosis, proving the concept that trash is a resource and the landfill is obsolete.
If you look at food waste and the amount of greenhouse gases produced by it around the world, it's actually as much as all of the transportation on the planet combined. We also lose the fertilizer value to restore depleted soils of both fertilizer and organic content.
Limassol had a big problem with the waste. 2 years ago, they were landfilling every waste that came. So we have been asked to make a plant that would treat the incoming waste and produce recyclables, secondary fuel, clean the air, clean water, and a very small percentage of waste still going to the landfill.
The waste comes to the plant from the municipal trucks. They're weighed before coming up to the plant to know exactly how much garbage we're receiving. And then they dump all their waste into a tipping pit. This is a large bunker where we can store the garbage and process it. From this pit, we have 2 overhead grapples that collect the waste and send it into the first step of the process, the bag openers. Most of our waste comes in garbage bags, so before we can access the waste inside to be able to treat it, we need to open those bags. Here we have pickers that take out specific items from the waste stream. We remove glass at this point, we remove long pieces of plastic film, electronic waste, medical waste. After the manual sorting, we have magnets which separate the large metallic pieces out of the waste. After these magnets, we have machines called disc screens. The disc screens serve to separate the organic material. Waste smaller than a pre-programmed size falls beneath. So this is a way of separating the waste by size.
Like other plants, we have separation equipment that allows to efficiently remove the recyclables from the waste, such as plastics, metals, paper, glass, and the RDF, SRF. Unlike other plants, we have the Orex that extracts up to 95% of food waste from the garbage. This organic fraction is fed into the digesters, which is an important part of our process since it allows to generate electricity and fertilizer, thus reducing our cost of treatment and giving back to the earth the fertilizer.
The Orex is a key piece of technology for this plant because it serves to very effectively separate the organics from the non-organic material. The way it works is a very high level of pressure is applied to the waste. Anything organic which is found in this waste is liquefied by the pressure. This paste is conveyed away for treatment and biogas production.
In Limassol, we only send 11% of the residual waste back to the landfill.
So that was the crux, and I move on to the presentation. So in Indonesia, people talk about the various procedure on the waste management. So I think we have 3 options. Option number 1 is where if there is an RDF off-taker, we can make an organic extraction, biogas, and RDF. The second option is make RDF and incinerate it in a co-located incineration plant, or simple, just take out the organic and the water, increase the calorific value, and co-located incineration plant burn the non-recyclable. So you make power from the MBT and power from the incineration. So this is a simple step. The waste goes in, you shred the waste, you screen the waste. The over fraction of the waste goes to an incinerator. The under fraction is the going to our ore express, then goes to the anaerobic digester. You make biogas, either you can make CNG or now even hydrogen, or you can send it to a CHP to make power. And the rejects of the OREX also goes to the incinerator. So you kind of make power in two ways. Every city in Indonesia will have wet market, and then you also have septate sludge. Now, imagine you send all this directly to an incinerator. It's actually crazy because it has a lot of water and you don't want to burn water. So I think you can either send the MSW to an MBT plant and take out the organics from MSW, put that into a digester. The vegetable market waste and the septate sludge can go directly into the digester, thus producing biogas, and only the non-recyclable is burned in an incinerator. So that's the concept which we are offering in certain places in Indonesia. Explained about this in a while earlier. This is a plant we are designing in Vietnam. It's a 1,500 tons a day plant. So that answers the question, how much capacity of this technology can handle. We can go even as high. It's a modular design where there is no incineration. This is the concept which we are right now implementing in Taiwan. The food waste comes separately. We treat it, we put it into a digester. Only the non-recyclable goes to the incinerator. So it's a co-located MBTT, mechanical biological thermal treatment. This is what I designed for one of the cities in Indonesia, which is a 1,000 ton per day plant. Waste goes to a little bunker. You take out the organics, put it into a digester. Only the non-recyclable portion goes to the co-located incineration plant. So basically, almost in a similar capex for a 1,000 tons per day incinerator, you kind of now make more power and it's more environmental friendly. So that was the design, and happy to share more on one-on-one. Some of the facilities we have built, yes, we have experience in Asia. We have built plants in India. We have built plant in Singapore. We are now looking at Vietnam. So these are some of the references. This is in US, Cyprus. This is in the city of Toronto, where we treat about 220 tons of food waste every day. I would like to end my slide by saying to all Bapak and Ibu on the call today is that we have talked a lot about waste management in Indonesia. I think we cannot run away from the economics. There is no magic solution, whether it's from Canada or from Japan or from US. Everything boils down to economics. And economics are driven by certain factors. And based on these economical factors, the solutions can be proposed. With this, I end my presentation, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Kunal. That's very informative. Thank you for that. Bapak Ibu sekalian, for all participants, I think we all know that the challenge of waste management is like everywhere else in the world. I think it's immense in Indonesia. We also, as Kunal mentioned earlier, have potential projects out there, or at least some of the key areas that the governments and local governments are looking at to find the solutions. Among others, at the moment, we're looking at the Jakarta Waste Management System. There are the East and South Jakarta waste that are under preparation today. We also see Lagok Nangka, Semarang, Piungan, and all. There are actually cities and urban areas are looking for solutions. So it is timely, I think, for all of us here in this discussion to discuss on how we can find solutions or breakthrough to today. Let me now take us to the next speaker. The next speaker is Klaus Skager, who is the president for Asia for Plastic Bank. The Plastic Bank ecosystem reveals the value in waste and offers a business solutions to poverty with blockchain technology to collect and exchange plastic in developing countries. IBM architected the proprietary blockchain application for Plastic Bank to ensure that the social and environmental impact is authentic and transparent. Plastic Bank also created a supply of ethically sourced social plastic. I think Klaus will later share with us social plastic for multinational corporations to use as feedstock in manufacturing. Plastic Bank have goals to gather 1 billion people together to monetize in 2030. Klaus comes with 25 years of experience from the corporate world. He spent 7 years as the managing director of Luxottica, Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and South Pacific. And before that, he spent 18 years with Procter & Gamble in different leadership roles across Europe and Asia. He's also been active in various different NGOs boards over the last 8 years. So Klaus, your views and inputs and point of discussion will be highly awaited by all the participants here. So the screen is yours to share your views. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you very much for that. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today and share with you an example of how a social, is it working? And share with you an example of how a social enterprise like the Plastic Bank is reducing plastic waste, improving lives while driving business growth for its customers. Every year, we produce more plastic than the weight of the entire population on Earth. All 7.8 billion of us. In the last 16 years alone, we have produced more plastic than in the rest of the history of plastic combined. Unfortunately, a large part of that plastic is ending up in our oceans. Every minute of every day, of every year, the equivalent of one garbage truck full of plastic is entering the ocean. By 2030, that will double. By 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in our ocean. Plastic banks want to contribute to ensure this does not happen. And our mission is to stop ocean plastic by gathering together 1 billion people to monetize plastic waste while improving lives. Imagine if you come into your kitchen and your sink is overflowing, you have water everywhere. What would you do first? Grab a mop, grab a plunger, or would you turn off the tap first? It would be pointless to start cleaning up before we turn off the tap first. At Plastic Bank, we do not focus on cleaning up the plastic that is already in the ocean. We are focused on ensuring that the plastic will never get there in the first place. Fix the root cause of the issue and turn off the tap. The opportunity is there. We can stop plastic from reaching the ocean, but we must change our relationship with plastic to do so. Rather than seeing plastic as waste, we need to reveal its true worth in changing our lives. We create recycling ecosystems in coastal communities and reintroduce the material back into the global supply chain as social plastic. By revealing the value inherent in plastic, we deliver environmental, social, and economic impact in the countries and regions where we operate. There's 4 steps to our model. One is that we built ethical recycling ecosystem in coastal communities. Currently, we're operating in Indonesia, Philippines, Egypt, Brazil, and Haiti. And we will shortly expand into Thailand and Vietnam. And we have 3 countries in Africa that we will be expanding into in 21 and in 22. Second is that collectors receive a premium for the material that they collect, which helps them improve their livelihood for themselves and their families. And our certified blockchain platform secures the entire transaction and provides real-time data, allowing for transparency, traceability, and rapid scalability. Third, the collected material is reprocessed into recycled plastic and reborn into social plastic, which can easily be reintegrated into products and packaging as part of a closed-loop supply chain. And last but not least, brands can now get an authentic impact narrative that would allow them to meet their SDG commitments and create a real point of differentiation towards their consumers. Here you see an overview of the current ecosystem and impact that we are creating. Currently, we are collecting 1.4 million kilo of plastic every month. We have 23,000 members. We have more than 300 collection points. We work with more than 16 processing partners, and we operate currently in 5 countries. So far, we have collected more than 16 million kilo of plastic, which is the equivalent of more than 800 million plastic bottles. We've impacted 85,000, family members. We support 105 schools, and our collectors, can increase their income up to 60%. Collectors and collection points manage all transaction real-time in our app as an all-in-one location point of sale system. Customers can share their data on live dashboards and see the total of kilo that is being collected, where it has been collected, who has collected, and what kind of impact they are creating in the number of collectors and families and value that is being transferred. Plastic waste can directly improve livelihoods. By revealing the true value, our collectors get access to clean water, food, cooking fuel, school tuition, health insurance, and digital savings. Using social plastic in brand packaging materials gives an opportunity to create real brand differentiation towards consumers. You, as the consumer, have the ultimate power over brands, as you can vote with your wallet what kind of future that you want for yourself and your children. Imagine that you're in a supermarket and you're standing in front of the shelf wanting to buy a bottle of shampoo. On the right, you can buy a brand that is using social plastic and is creating environmental, social, and economic impact in the countries where it's most needed in the world. On the left is another brand that is just adding to the plastic crisis we already have. Which brand would you buy? Plastic Bank directly contributes to 14 of the 17 United Nations Sustainability Development Goals, which attracts a lot of customers and partners to work with us. Here you can see some of the key partners that we are working with across the world. And as you can see, it's in all different sectors, from fast-moving consumer goods with Henkel and SC Johnson and Procter & Gamble and Unilever, to fashion with Hugo Boss, to cosmetic with Coty, and even our good partner Gojek in Indonesia as well. Plastic Bank is basically selling 3 products. The first one is what we call ecosystem activation, where we invite customers, to invest with us to create collection infrastructure in the parts of the world where there is none or very little today. The second one is selling social plastic to them, which is the physical material that we collect and process and ship to our customers around the world, which they then can reintroduce into their brands and create a real point of differentiation and let the consumer choose what kind of a world that they want to have. And third, and not least, is what we call our impact programs, which is an opportunity to offset a company's or a brand's plastic uses. So we have many customers who are in the process of transferring from virgin plastic into recycled plastic. That takes time, and many want to take responsibility today. And then they can engage the plastic bank for us to collect the amount of plastic in our ecosystem around the world to offset what they currently are using. There's a real need for urgency to address the plastic crisis. And I'll end with a quote from the American President JFK. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? The ocean can't wait. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Klaus. Very informative, and I think many of us would like to understand how to partner and how to work with Plastic Bank. Okay, moving on. I think we'll try to catch up with the time now. Let me introduce the next speaker. Our next speaker is Carolyn Bailey. She is the Manager of Business Development in Quadrogen Power System, a company with a tagline, a greener earth through sustainable energy. So Quadrogen Power System is a privately held Canadian clean tech company that designs, build, and install cost-effective, high-performance gas cleanup and upgrading solutions for the industrial, agricultural, and renewable energy sectors. Since its inception in 2007, the company has experienced significant growth and has been ranked number 3 by Business in Vancouver's 2020 as top 100 fastest growing companies in British Columbia. Quadrogen provides engineered solutions using proprietary technologies to create clean energy for biogases, industrial waste gases, and syngases, including renewable natural gas, renewable heat and power, carbon neutral CO2 for greenhouse fertilization, green hydrogen, and biodiesel. It sounds very exciting, and Carolyn Bailey, the screen is yours to share all the way from Vancouver. A very good evening for you there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm just going to share my screen first. Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen and hear me?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, good morning to everybody, and thanks very much for joining us at the Waste Management Technologies webinar, Infrastructure Connect. My name's Carolyn Bailey, and I'm Manager of Business Development with Quadrogen Power Systems. We're based in Vancouver, Canada. So I'm just going to provide a bit of a view of what our company does and some of the projects that are happening both locally and around the world. So we're a clean tech manufacturer, and as mentioned to us earlier on, that we design, build, and install cost-effective, high-performance gas cleanup and upgrading systems for the industrial, agricultural, and renewable energy sector. Our vision here is to provide a greener planet by sustainable energy and to find value in the unexpected. So, for example, converting biogas from landfill waste to valuable products and chemicals such as renewable natural gas, renewable heat, and electricity. And our mission is to provide customers with world-class gas cleanup products and services to convert waste gases into clean energy. Company founded in 2007 by our president and CEO, Alak Prasad. We've grown initially actually from about 2 people back in the day out of the University of British Columbia. And now we have over 90 employees, 20 of which is headquartered in our Vancouver office. And the remaining 70 some odd folks are based in our manufacturing and design facility in Pune, India. So as mentioned earlier, that our company provides gas cleanup solutions, and some of our markets include municipal wastewater treatment plants, landfills, solid separated organics, and also agricultural waste such as dairy digesters, chicken manure, that sort of thing. Some of our partners and customers you see here, we've done some work with Microsoft, a company called Fuel Cell Energy, Air Products, and recently we're doing having more of a focus on the renewable hydrogen in markets like China. So we've also been fortunate enough to win several awards and recognition. Some of you will see here below, which I've laid out here, which I won't go into. So now in this slide, we're looking at some of our reference sites and some of our international offices that we have around the world. Our research currently indicates that the current biogas cleanup world market is worth about $15 billion US. We've got approximately 29 projects underway. Mainly you'll see with the green dots here across the US, mainly at kind of agricultural sites and kind of with the dairy farms. But we're also commissioning some systems over in Europe, in France. We've got some projects that are happening in Beijing as well, and looking to expand further into the Chinese market. Also Indonesia, of course. We also have a project in Thailand, and we're looking to further into that market as well. So some of our other offices that we have an office in California. I mentioned before in Pune, India, we have the manufacturing plant, and we also have a regional office in Shanghai. So this infographic here, as you can see, kind of further breaks down what we do and the whole biogas value chain, where Quadrigen sits within this value chain. So you can see here, we've created an integrated gas cleanup system that is able to take waste gases from, for example, agricultural waste, solid food waste, wastewater treatment, and also landfill to produce various multiple value products and streams. So you'll see here, depending on what you would like the end product to be, we're able to produce renewable electricity, heat, CO2 for fertilization of greenhouse, biodiesel, green hydrogen, and also through our biogas upgrading, we're able to clean the gas to an ultra clean level that is pipeline ready for natural gas pipeline that's existing. So here we've got some of our project highlights. So this one is one of our earlier ones, the first one on the left here. This is for the Orange County Sanitation District in the US. Projects basically uses waste biogas from the Orange County Sanitation District's wastewater treatment plant, generates electricity that is renewable and also suitable for injection into the power grid. For this project, we partner up with a company in the US called Fuel Cell Energy to generate clean electricity for wastewater treatment plant. And also they have an existing refueling station at the edge of the plant for their fuel cell electrical fleet. So we're able to produce some renewable hydrogen for that as well. So far, there's been over 21,000 hours of operation. More than 25 million cubic feet of biogas has been processed into hydrogen without any major maintenance requirements. And the one in the middle is a project that we did at the end of 2014 for Microsoft. So this particular one is for their data processing center out in Wyoming, also in the US. So biogas is taken from a nearby water reclamation facility. It's directed to the site and is cleaned up to produce electricity in order to operate the processing center in the renewable electricity. So project was commissioned 2014 and currently still has no issues, and required levels of contaminants has been cleaned up. So the last one here is actually quite interesting. This one, it's the first of its kind in the world. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard of things like cogeneration, but this one we call hex generation. So this is actually a project based in British Columbia out in a city called Delta, where we basically take landfill gas from the city of Vancouver's landfill. We're able to put it up through our cleanup and upgrading system to produce 6 different vertical of kind of different gases. So for example, we have kind of renewable food grade CO2, electricity, biodiesel, natural gas, which already actually is, we're working with a local utility to get the renewable natural gas to their customers, and also green hydrogen as well too. So we've got a lot of support, and we're very thankful for both local and federal government for the support for this project. So here's just a closer look of what some of the projects look like. It doesn't really take too much, space, physical space. So this one's the Orange County Sanitation District. This one is the one for Microsoft, and this is our existing hex generation project. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the waste to energy market, which I know the other speakers have already talked about. So currently, there's definitely, as most people are aware, that there's an issue with an increasing municipal solid waste in developing cities around the world. There's negative impact on both the population's health and environment. This time, the waste of about 3 billion people, or 70% of municipal solid waste, still ends up in landfills or in uncontrolled dump sites. The waste often contaminates soil, groundwater, but also emits greenhouse gas, which contributes to global warming and climate change. So dealing with these types of waste is definitely gaining importance on the political agenda, as all countries and governments are committed to clean technology innovation, and definitely we're more sensitive towards environmental pollution and the impact on everyday life. So you can see here that existing market, there's definitely very popular in terms of biogas upgrading already, generation of renewable power from the biogas, and also kind of polishing the natural gas to cleaner gases. But another emerging market that we've noticed and we're quite interested in looking into is distributed food waste, and converting that into a bio-compressed natural gas. Definitely there's many different countries have come out with their hydrogen plan, and I've been quite familiar with that. I actually was with the Hydrogen Fuel Cell Association of Canada for about 10 years. So definitely very good to see that there's a hydrogen economy is on its way, and definitely interest in CO2 methanation as well too. So how is RNG used? Renewable gas can be used to pretty much fuel and power anything that currently runs on existing natural gas. The main source of RNG, also known as biomethane or biogas, or renewable methane, is actually currently organic materials rotting in landfills, sewage treatment plants, and biodigesters. As these materials begin to rot without oxygen, it produces the methane. So the RNG can be created from things like gasification, where the biomass is heated under pressure until it gives off volatile gases. Even more exotically, methane can be created by electricity to split hydrogen away from the water, combining it with carbon. So I'm gonna not go too much into this slide here, which I think we mentioned. So this is a proprietary technology called C3P technology that was invented by our president and CEO. So basically what it does is a 4-step process. So condensation, it basically takes the raw gas, So it's cool to condense water and other contaminants, such as siloxanes and other organic compounds that are separated from the gas stream to remove a large proportion of the contaminants without using any absorbent media. Then it's converted and further broken down through a hydrogen-assisted catalytic process, converting broad spectrum problematic organic contaminants into more known species. It's captured, and finally the biogas is further polished to parts per billion level, which is basically ready for pipeline use. So like I mentioned before, this is just a little bit background on the Hex Generation project that we've been working on. We definitely have currently an agreement in place with one of our utilities, FortisBC, to provide renewable natural gas to their customers, and looking to actually work with some other project partners on producing hydrogen, green hydrogen, for their products and services. This is a project that we did in China, Sun Paper Mill. This is whereby the biogas is from wastewater treatment plant, and we were able to take that and clean it and remove it and produce the electricity which was needed to run the plant. So the ROI was so great, like it was within 20 months that they actually did another project with us. And last but not least, we did a project a couple of years ago in Thailand with Sakol Energy. This was commissioned in 2019. So project basically treats commercial waste biogas extracted from tap starch facility to produce green compressed natural gas. So to date, this still remains the largest commercial waste to CBG plant in Thailand. And just a little bit more information on this. Thank you very much for your time. I hope I didn't take up too much of everyone's time here, and I'd like to pass this back to you guys.
Thank you. That's very informative. I think we are good. We are good for time. Actually, we're spot on time. So we'll have enough time for our panel discussions, and later on, I will come to the audience here. We see there's 230 plus audience this morning. Very enthusiastic participants. We have several questions coming up for all of us. But before that, let's discuss a little bit of how we look at the specifically the Indonesian market. As we are all discussing about the waste management, there are also specific issues pertaining to the Indonesian market. As we look at waste management, I think there are three things that Indonesia will need to look at. The first one probably is the context-specific regulatory, economic, and social initiatives around the waste management. Secondly, is obviously the technologies Indonesia needs to apply that are fit with the situation. And thirdly, also important that Indonesia is facing is perhaps how do we finance new technologies? How do public sector work with private sector on this? Let me just go around the table first. Probably let me go to Klaus first. Klaus, specifically for Indonesia, how do you see the plastic bank ecosystem can be introduced specifically as per your experience before? How do we get the 1, 2, 3 initiatives that the way we work with plastic bank, and how do you see plastic bank work in this environment? If you can enlighten us a little bit as follow through from your presentation.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I think, so first of all, Indonesia is our biggest ecosystems, in the world. And we spent the last, 3 years testing many different ways in terms of how we are engaging in the community to build the right collection infrastructure. So what we find is, especially as you go outside, tier 1 cities, or go tier 2 and tier 3, there's very little infrastructure in place. So there's a huge need for building infrastructure, engage with local entrepreneurs, empower them with knowledge so they can start up, their own business. And then obviously in terms of drive awareness in the communities, engage people to start, segregate the material, at source from home. So it's very important. So most people are, using one waste stream in Indonesia, which contaminate the plastic that we need for recycling later on, which obviously is not good for us. So we have now found, in terms of, we think, the way in terms of of how we have an exponential scalable model that we can scale up in Indonesia. So we are currently operating, we started in Bali, we are in Lombok, we are in the whole eastern part of Java, we are in Batam, and now we just started in Greater Jakarta as well. So you will find over the next couple of years, in terms of that, we will scale up our model across Indonesia to create that collection infrastructure that is really needed. Currently, all our customers, or most of our customers, are international customers, in particular from Europe and from North America. So we are doing a huge effort in terms of driving local sales now. So the ambition is very much in terms of that we will collect, we will process, and we will sell to local companies who will then produce their packaging material in a full closed loop systems. So it's a paradox that you have in Indonesia, who's the second largest contributor to ocean plastic in the world. So we're drowning in plastic, and still we are importing millions and millions of tons of plastic, every year, and we want to change that.
Excellent. Okay, so many still needs to do, and I think congratulations for growing the market all the way from unusually from the east to the west, as opposed to from the west to the east part of Indonesia. But you're right. I think urbanizations and urban development will be a key priority to the Indonesian government. We are, if not one of the most urbanizing countries in the world, with almost 300 million people. Within the next 20, 30 years, there will be more, if not 80% of Indonesian populations will be living in urban areas. This contributes to between 60 to 70 million new middle classes and new urban populations, transforming to become urban population. So this is going to be a major task for any government, for any local governments. Thank you for that. Now let me just go to Kunal. Kunal, you follow the Indonesian market quite closely also. At the moment, we have several waste programs solicited from the government, various different projects, central and local governments. We have the West Jakarta, we have the East and South Jakarta coming up, Semarang and South Tangerang, following the Tangerang before. You know that Legok Nangka model is coming into the market. So it seems like that this PPP model is something that all of us, we have quite some government participants here in this discussion. So with that, we also know that the Indonesian waste has its specific qualities, and best on what you suggest earlier. What do you think is the best possible approach to manage waste? And if we can connect that with how government should encourage that way of managing the waste, based on your experience, Kunal.
Right. Pak, very good questions. And Pak Bani, you've been involved in the infrastructure space for over 2-3 decades. For everybody on the call today, including the government officials, waste management has to be looked from the perspective of social infrastructure. When you build an MRT in Jakarta, or you build a toll road in Jakarta, or you build a metro in Jakarta, people generally do not ask for a IRR for a metro project. The IRRs, Pak Bani, are 40, 50, 60, 70 years. Yes. But when it comes to waste management, suddenly people believe that the IRR has to be less than 7 years payback period. The IRR has to be 15%. One school of thought that waste management has to be considered as part of social infrastructure. It is not waste to gold. That's synonymous, and that message is gone. Waste is not gold. Number two, clearly there has been some progress in terms of at least awareness and projects going into the market sounding stage and projects moving forward. But I think it has been left somehow to the private sector only, that you come, this is the waste, this is the land, set up a plant and make money. Unfortunately, it is not going to run that way. I think Indonesia has done a very good job in drinking water BOT projects, which is with the SPUM. There are a lot of drinking water BOT projects. I think similarly, also on the waste side, it has to move. Now, coming to the question of the waste is very peculiar. Yes, it is very different than even Singapore, which is just stone's throw away from Batam, by the way. So the waste in let's say, I divide the world in two hemispheres when it comes to waste, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. The northern hemisphere is generally the Americas, the Europe, and up to Korea and China and Japan, where the waste, let me, if I can say, qualify, is rich. It is nicely segregated. It has high calorific value. It is different, okay? And that's why the school of thought there is segregated waste, burn the non-recyclables, recover whatever resources possible from the other parts of waste. The waste in the southern hemisphere, you take Latin America, Africa, India, Middle East, Southeast Asia, the waste is different because people habits are different. And in Indonesia, the waste which ultimately goes to the landfill, as we have been seeing in many places, is high in organic content. And I beg to differ here that the food cannot be burned. Food needs to be digested or done something else with it, but food cannot be burned. So the idea is that whatever makes economical sense, because there is a lot of questions, Pagbani, if you see in the Q&A, people are asking about, majority of the questions are, what is the cost part? I think that's a very valid question. I think the cost is a word, and it depends on what is the tipping fee, what is the power tariff, can we get an off-taker for bio-CNG, can we get an off-taker for compost, and accordingly, we can structure a project part. As you know, structuring is possible. It all boils down to CapEx, OpEx, and IRR then, if IRR is the way going forward. So I think a hybrid solution is the need of the hour, and every city would need a tailor-made solution.
That's very good point, where we started talking about the CapEx and how we develop our program. In some of the waste management projects that I am helping preparing for the market for various different governments at the moment, we've seen the fiscal capacity of local governments and fiscal capacity of the governments is key issues. So as soon as we talk about the technologies that we are going to adopt, then immediately you are facing with the reality that, hey, the fiscal capacity has its limitations. Now, Carolyn, the technologies that you've presented earlier obviously come with a price or with a certain capex numbers. How do you see that working with various different authorities or cities around the world in your projects? Is that anything that you can share? How do we
Right. So, sorry, you just broke off there a little bit.
Oh, sorry. How do we view? How do we view financing issues vis-a-vis the technologies that we are introducing in the market to this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I find like just even with, before joining Quadrigen, just even working in like the hydrogen sector, I've been in there for about 8 years. Funding and money always is an issue at times, given that it's, it's new technology. It's not massively adopted yet, so there's definitely issues with that. But I find like with Quadrigen, we've done enough projects whereby a lot of times we work with other companies that actually put together the entire project. So we provide the pressure swing absorption system and the parts. they're able to kind of bring in various partners and also government funding partners to make the project feasible. So far we haven't had any major hurdles or issues, because we've been kind of selling a lot of our products and services to those engineering firms that are actually putting together the projects. But I see what you mean in terms of like a hurdle. Like it's not a cheap thing, you know. Like we would like to say that, you know, like we want to be able to kind of balance like what was mentioned, Kunal mentioned earlier about, you know, social infrastructure, right? Having that, not just, you know, looking at renewable energy as a source of a moneymaker or gold rush, that sort of thing, because that is not the right lens to look at it. We need to look for future generations as well too, right? So we need to take that into consideration, for sure.
So obviously waste issues does connect very dearly with issues on social issues, right? And I guess having that sorted out early on in the chain is something that you're looking at. So Klaus, if in your social plastic and organizations through plastic banks, how do you actually work with governments? I mean, how do we look at government support or government linkages in your program, or how do government participate in the likes of your program?
Yeah, so in all the communities, you know, where we are operating, you know, we are obviously working closely with the local government. So one is to know in terms of like, you know, what we're trying to achieve, get the support for them in terms of, you know, to reach out into the communities. We are running a pilot test on school projects, for example, where we go into school to drive, you know, awareness, education, and engagement of the kids and their parents. So we're actually setting up schools as a collection center as well. So we teach the kids in terms of overall waste management, the importance of recycling. And then we get the kids in terms of, you know, to start segregating their material at home. And then once a week, they will bring all the plastic, you know, to the schools. The plastic bank, you know, will buy this material. And the value of that material then goes back to enhanced learning at the schools. So there's many ways, and I think, you know, there's even more ways in terms of like, you know, as we look at in terms of how we can scale up the model that we have. So when you look at Indonesia, 250 million people, and you were talking about the size of the waste issue, you know, what the country need is models that is exponential scalable. This is not a problem for small individual projects. We need to find something, you know, that we can scale across the huge geographic that Indonesia are. So as we move forward and really need to scale up, the government is definitely going to be an important partner for us.
Yes, excellent point there about scaling up our efforts. But there is one also a very pertinent questions that we always talk about working with government is tipping fee on waste management. Okay, I'm gonna challenge Kunal now about this. But Kunal, tipping fee, how important it is, and for our friends from the governments that are in our discussion today, how do you see this as an industry, as a player, right, in a sector? How do we position tipping fee? Because obviously, as you know it very well, this is becoming always the discussion when we talk about waste.
Pagbani, you've touched a very sensitive or very interesting topic. Tipping fee is the golden word in our community now. For everybody on the call, let me put some facts on the table. I'll not make up any facts. These are the facts from the world. You talk about tipping fees in Canada and US, you're talking on an average $50 a ton. $50 a ton. You talk about tipping fees in the UK, 120 pounds a ton. Okay. You talk about tipping fees in any other European country, like we are doing a lot of projects in Italy. It's 110 euros a ton. Okay, so then you talk about tipping fees in Japan, you're talking $100. Let's come to Singapore, which is a 1 hour flight from Jakarta, or 2 hour flight from Jakarta, is 72 Sing dollars per ton. Okay, you talk about tipping fees in Taiwan, very high. Let's now go to even developing nations. China, on an average, a tipping fee is 25 to 30 US dollars a ton. So why there was in the first instance a tipping fee? Because the government said that it is social infrastructure. The only way, like when you enter a metro, you pay for the ticket to sit in the metro. It's not subsidized, it's not free. So similarly, when you throw your waste and it goes to a waste management facility, somebody has to pay. Now that payment can be translated back to individual home. It can be even $1 per month per home, or even $50 per month per home in Jakarta, half US dollar, 5,000 rupiah or 7,000 rupiah per home per month. But all these kind of things have to come into picture, sir.
Hey, interesting. I think the last one in Jakarta, our tipping fee calculation was not very far from some of those countries you mentioned. But anyway, that's for a later discussion. I think audience, I see that from audience there are questions. Let me just say hello to everybody in the call today. We have about 40 questions, and I apologize if we will not be able to share or discuss all the questions, but let me just pick some interesting questions. It's getting okay. Here's an interesting questions from Pa Andi Akbar Masnawi Arif, right? With the existence of plasma gasifications and vitrifications technology innovations that are appropriate to address environmental pollution problems, especially in urban countries of the world. But socio-cultural customs are one of the key to optimal waste management. It's not only depending on processing technology, but also regulatory and public awareness. What are the strategies and ideas you have for the community so that bad habits towards waste don't happen again and again? So how do we stop, how do we work on the population side? Who's going to take these questions? I think, let me just go for Klaus maybe. Klaus, you want to add something to that? How do we...
Sorry, sorry, the neighbors are renovating, so I didn't hear that. So maybe you let one of the other one take the ones first, and I will listen to the question.
Okay. So probably Carolyn, if you get the questions right, how do we community?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think definitely for myself personally, like I come from very like international type of background. Like my dad's Canadian, my mom's from Hong Kong. Spent some time working in Asia. So culture definitely plays a huge role when it comes to kind of understanding the whole concept of waste management, where, for example, like just even a couple of generations ago, you can see I caught my grandmother in her kitchen when she's like cutting up meats and vegetables and literally like throwing it out the window. So it's, you know, there's definitely, I think in terms for companies like ours to kind of, I guess, get to better understand, you know, the culture and just the social cultural norms. One way we've been doing it is actually connecting very well with the Canadian Trade Commissioner Service. They've done a great job in terms of kind of, you know, giving us the landscape. You know, they're there on the ground. They're the ones that kind of really understands the different, you know, governments and also, you know, potential partners, you know. So like for us to go into a market, we would definitely rely on their expertise and also kind of some of the companies and partners that they're able to kind of educate us on how we can help, you know, society, but also like the actual issue itself. So
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Joseph Huang, thank you for Joseph Huang here. Thank you for highlighting that. For Kunal, Jakarta, it was 500,000 per ton. That's close to 50 Australian dollars. It's getting there. It's It's getting better. Go through. We have Pak Bambang Sujiantoko, Muhammad Aidil Sahalo, plenty of questions. Let me get, again, it's about tipping fee. Claus, specifically for you, how do you see plastic with the traditional way of plastic journey now in our, from households to where you want it to be? How do you think best to address that in your experience in Bali? And I think you've been working in Surabaya and Batam now. What is your experience in that? How difficult was it, and what is the key challenges there?
So the key challenge is very much in terms of that the majority of people, continue to see plastic purely as waste with zero value, attached to it. And I think this is, where the whole concept and the model of plastic bank, really comes into place, where we are really monetizing the plastic. So as you know, different plastic types has different value, from the PET to the PP to the STP and the soft and the sachets. And as you go down into the soft and the sachets, the value goes down very low. So the collection rate of plastic is very different in a country like Indonesia. And what we're trying to do is obviously to dramatically increase the collection rates. So we see in terms of, as we come into the communities, and first we ensure that there's a fair market price that is paid for the material. But on top of that, we put, our plastic ban premium. So that's a significant increase in the price that we are willing to pay for it. And then where you see that, then suddenly you see that you can double, triple, quadruple, depending the plastic type that you're looking at, the amount of plastic that is being collected in the communities. So we've done many tests, as normally when we go into a community, we always try to put a baseline in place. So we want to be authentic, so we can measure in terms of what's the true impact that plastic bank, is creating in those communities. And it is extraordinary to see in terms of what value does. So I'm from Denmark, myself, so in Denmark for the last 35 years, if you go and buy a bottle in a supermarket, you pay 50 cents per bottle on top of the price of the product, 50 cents, right? And you get that money. You get that money back when you return the bottle at the supermarket. So we have a recycling rate of 98% in Denmark, and basically all countries, who use the same kind of concept, Northern Europe, Germany, England, we see the same. And it's a lot of that, philosophy, that we're taking, here, to Indonesia and the rest of the world, in terms of we must increase the value of the plastic, and then we must somebody who's willing to pay for that. And that's, where the whole social plastic, comes into play, that we find these customers around the world, who really want to not just buy, recycled plastic, but they want plastic that also creates social impact in the communities.
Thank you, Claus, for mentioning that, because I still remember when my little daughter was in exchange programs, schools to Denmark, the first thing that they introduced for kids is your recycling habit or culture. Probably I also would like to bring us to some very technical questions. I think we talk about financing and government and PPP. We talk about the also social way of managing waste. There are several questions on pretty technical. Let me go to so that I can be quite not gender biased. I'm going to find some questions from the ladies. Yeah, Lauren, Ibu Lauren Irmayani. Questions to Carolyn. Carolyn, you mentioned some gas purification technologies, condensing, conversions, capture, polishing. Do you need to install all of these technologies, or it all depends on the further usage of gas, either it's electricity or HEX or biodiesel or others?
Right, yeah, it's very much dependent on the project itself. So if, for example, the biogas needs to be cleaned up to specifications for pipeline usage, then yes, you would need to install that. But it's the process actually takes place within like one physical machine. So it's not like you need to install 4 separate things to do all of the steps. Yeah. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I think so. Kunal, another technical question for you. How much energy is generated from the waste processing, and how efficient is the level of CO2 emissions produced by Indonesia's technologies made from waste when compared to fossil energy raw materials?
Again, Padmani, the answer to that question will be a question again, that what is the waste composition? That's why I was saying that waste management cannot be a standardized product. If anybody sells it that way, either the selling technique is wrong, or the party on the other side probably doesn't understand it. The answer to this is that the power which can be produced from a given quantity of waste depends on the quality of waste. If the waste is very high in organic, the power generation from an incineration plant will be lower. If the waste is very high in calorific value, the power generation will be high. But just because in a context, if you are putting, and given that we have some experience in Indonesia, 1,000 tons a day of Indonesian waste in Jakarta could produce about 19 megawatt equivalent of power. 18 to 19 megawatt equivalent of power.
Excellent. So we're going to have a look at what kind of waste, right? So you are saying Bandung and Surabaya and Medan will have a different profile.
Correct, sir. Composition. Like some places, if there is a lot of commercial and industrial waste, the calorific value is very high. Where there is a lot of residential waste, the calorific value is lower because, out of the manual scavenging, a lot of high calorific value stuffs are taken out. So, and then again, the amount of organic, is it 30%, 40%, 50%? Accordingly, amount of biogas will be generated and amount of electricity will be generated from the biogas. So that is another thing, Pak, that electricity is not the only product. So far, we have all thought that electricity is only the product, and we know that the solar prices are going down, the geothermal prices are going down. So why would PLN buy at a very expensive tariff the waste, electricity, then solar? Solar is 5 cents, 6 cents, 7 cents US dollar. So that's why we were saying that. Yes, it's Padmani.
Yeah, thank you. Let me now bring all of us, the 3 of us, all the panel here, to the questions of the year, which is the pivots around COVID-19. All of us are now facing the pandemic. Not only that, the way we do business, the way we operate, but also the way community are behaving, and the processes out there is changing. Just a quick example, I think if only half of the world populations is using mask and changing mask once or twice a day, it's like I don't know how many billion tons of just a mask, right? But that's despite the very stark situation. For your companies in the industry that you are in, how does COVID-19 changes your strategy, or how do you adapt with the COVID-19 environment where governments and communities are changing? So we're talking about the pivots of your strategy towards COVID-19 environment. Let me start from the back to the front now, Caroline, and then Klaus, and then after that, Kunal, perhaps a minute or two each of us, so that we can have exact time for our discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, so unfortunately, COVID-19 as a pandemic's definitely, affected a lot of us, every one of us. We're all in this together, right? In terms of our company, actually having a manufacturing facility in Pune, India, I think back in March, we had to shut down our facilities for approximately 3 weeks because 35 out of, about 35 out of the 60 workers there actually caught COVID. So we had to kind of bring in extra measures to ensure that, you know, that they were getting not treatment, but I mean they were getting tested, and just to make sure that it wouldn't continue to spread. But with that said, I think on the, you know, more relevant, which is the renewable energy and waste to energy sector, I think up until now, like recently, everything's I've noticed has been on more of a reactive type of basis. So we're like, oh, you know, the climate's changing, like we need to meet the Paris Accord, that sort of thing. Let's do this now, you know. But I think having COVID, it's actually stalled and stopped us to really make us think more clearly and say, like, look, we need to switch now. Instead of being reactive, we need to be proactive when it comes to converting, you know, waste to energy if we want to, you know, have this planet, you know, for our children and years to come. So I think definitely, you know, how we're doing it is we've been fortunately still pretty busy despite COVID. So we're having some bottlenecks in manufacturing, but luckily, you know, thank God, you know, we've got about 30 some odd projects. So we're still doing pretty well despite.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Klaus, your closing statement and the COVID pivots on your strategy.
Yeah, so it's certainly been an interesting year. I think if you look at the countries that we're operating in, then the COVID waves have hit at different times. And that's obviously, you know, the strength for us in terms of like, you know, that we have the opportunity to change, you know, our supply chain to still deliver to our customers. So even during COVID, you know, we have been able to supply all our customers, you know, in full on time. Thanks in terms of a lot to the work being done in the countries. I have to say that, you know, we have gone through extraordinary lengths to try to keep our business, you know, open in all countries. And simply for the fact in terms of the majority of the people that we work with are the ultra poor. So these are the $2, $3, $4 people a day. And for these people, the equation is very simple. You don't collect the material today, you don't eat tonight. And we obviously take that as a huge responsibility in terms of like, you know, how we can help them through this, you know, very difficult time. So we have put a lot of safety measure in place, you know, in our collection centers, you know, how to make it safe, you know, for the collectors, you know, to go around and collect. You know, we have worked with some of our customers, you know, who have provided sanitizers and everything, you know, to our customers. So I think, you know, over and all, in terms of like, you know, we have actually increased our business, you know, versus, you know, decreasing. And I think, you know, there's so many silver lining, and that will be the same for all companies, because you just need to innovate. You know, all the things, you know, that, you know, we visit a lot of the collection centers. We need to be in the community. We thought we needed to be that before. Now we use technology. You know, we can still be everywhere, you know, but we do it with technology. And I think that has really been a great learning for us. And as we get out of the COVID, you know, we will have a much enhanced business model of how we can do things, you know, faster, cheaper, more effective.
Thank you, Klaus. Pak Kunal, last but not least, your takeaways on COVID and how does that changes or even enhance your strategy in the market?
Thank you, Pak. I agree with Caroline and Klaus that it has been somehow a blessing in disguise. I always say that the waste sector and the water sector are sectors not like the oil and gas sector, which goes up and down. They are constant. You will see that waste management was part of essential services in every given country. So thankfully, we were allowed to operate all our